Welcome back to the Beyond the Wrestling Gear podcast, where we just don't talk about wrestling, but we go beyond it. I'm here with Mr. Tommy Bell. He is a pinup artist, and he also works in collaboration with LFC, the Lingerie Fighting Championship. Welcome, Tommy.
Well, thank you, David. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good. And I want to thank you for inviting me on the show. It was quite a surprise. And I jumped right at it. And I was like, hey, great. Somebody to talk to. Let's do it.
I know Michael was such a wonderful guest, and he's a great human being, and what he's doing is phenomenal. All of you
Yeah.
all are
And
doing.
Michael's been a good friend. And he was even in my last drawing. So poor Michael. I get to abuse him sometimes.
So how did you start with did you start with the pinup artistry before the wrestling, or did you do that together when you first
I
started?
My original idea 5 years ago was that I was gonna start creating a portfolio that was a blend of both because it was something that I felt hadn't been done and certainly hadn't been done for the community, where you take popular female athletes, fighters, boxers, da da da, and feature them in some kind of fantasy artwork. That was really my entire goal. And that picked up very fast. I was really surprised, uh, the reaction of the people that I started drawing, and then they would pass me to their friends, and very quickly, it just very quickly, it just turned into something. I don't even know.
When did you originally start? Like around what time?
When did I do what?
When did you start?
Well, just a 60-second backstory. I worked on fantasy style art and things like that all throughout the 90s, probably
Okay.
1990, going all the way through 1999. And I just burn out, and I had a limited audience because we really didn't have internet back then, and there was no way to really show the world or reach out to people and say, "Look at what I'm doing." The only people that saw that were people that actually knew you. And I'm in Ohio, so like you're really limiting even the people who like art versus the people who liked what I was doing. And I tried joining one of the local art clubs, and they said, "Well, tune it down, and maybe we'll think about it." And I was really rejected. I drove away from that meeting, really pissed off. But so I stopped at the end of 99. I was really I just lost my spirit for everything and stopped for until 2020.
And then is that around the time you and Michael met and finally got collaborating
Yeah.
together?
I'm trying to think back. Some of the first drawings that I did in 2020 featured Jolene Hex from the LFC. And I didn't really know her from the LFC. I didn't really know about it. And it was in one of the times we were talking that she told me about this company. And she said, "You really ought to reach out to Sean. Like, your artwork's really crazy." And I was like, "Thanks." And she's like, "Reach out to Sean because I bet you this would be something he'd be interested in." And I did. And the response I got back from Sean, and then very quickly, a lot of other members of the LFC community, was very enthusiastic, But so shortly after I started meeting people in the LFC, I got a message. And I remember stopping my wife in the hallway. We were walking through the house, and we were like in the hallway as we were talking or whatever. My phone goes off, and I stopped and I read this message, and I said, "This Michael Larkin guy, he wants to have me on his podcast. I've never done a podcast. What the hell am I supposed to do?"
You're right.
And she was like, "Well, just do it, and whatever." And that's like how we met. But that was towards, I think that would have been like November or December of 2020.
Wow, so you guys have been pretty much together since then. You guys are probably pretty close, and you guys have done multiple events together, right?
We've slowly over the years, Michael and I have grown a lot closer together simply because of, I mean, it was just kind of quite accidental, just morphed itself into something where he always backed my artwork. And so pretty soon I started to involve him in things. And at one point in time, Sean Donnelly, the CEO of Lingerie Fighting Championships, was really pushing me to do a drawing show. And I had to find my comfort zone before I could do that. And a few episodes in, I realized that it was dull without somebody to shoot off of, right? Dialogue wise, like it's very hard to have a podcast with just you and the special guest is you. And what are you supposed to, but because Michael was literally on there watching each show as they were being recorded so that he could edit, and he would sit there with his microphone off and just take notes and stuff. And I thought, he's just a co host waiting in the green room. Just like open up that door and go, dude, I need you to do stuff, and regardless, because I don't have any scripts, I don't go off of anything. I just do my thing, you know, and I just thought he'd be great to bounce things off of. And he has been
But yeah, he's always busy. Like he has like how many podcasts? Like 3?
like 14. I don't even know. I joke with him all the time. I'm like, you got a pod? I'm like, you do 3 of them at one time? Are you overlapping content? What are you doing? Swapping stuff. He's just always, because that's what the dude loves to do. And, damn, that social media magnet's got it going on, right?
You know what you do is pretty awesome because you're not just focusing on art, but you're also focusing on the human anatomy and the beauty behind it, versus just, you're looking at a piece of art and there's no meaning behind it. With this, there's a lot more behind it than just the art itself, right?
And I'll probably tell you something that I've never said on any of my drawing shows or on any other podcast before, which is the real truth of it is I'm trying to I saw a need for an area to be filled because there was nothing there, but I didn't know that it would work, right? Because you're combining elements of supporting all these fighter and wrestler companies, right? Not just the LFC, Jennifer Thomas's program that she's got going on and all these things, but you're trying to incorporate a support for that. You're trying to give each image some kind of pull people into a fantasy world that they wouldn't otherwise be able to go to because it's locked away up here until I share it. And all these different elements and being very flattering to every element of everything. At the end of 12 or 13 days, or however long it takes me to do one, I'm exhausted. Like there's a little piece of me that goes into and then is saved in each drawing. And I think maybe I'm just crazy or artistically nutty, but I think people can pick up on that. Like, and they'll look at a drawing and realize that there was a lot of, really sore hands after a while and your eyes get strained. And I'm an older dude, so it's not like uh, I'm the machine I used to be, so really pouring so much of your creative energies into an image, one singular image. And I think people respond to that though. They see it and they go, wow, this was not just an ordinary drawing. Although I'm using old school stuff.
Right, old school methods, right? That's the best way to go sometimes.
Colored pencils and paper, dude, and a fine ink pen to make some of the lines more distinct. That's, that's what I grew up on.
Yeah, that's honestly in my opinion, that's the best way to go because you're paying more attention to detail, by that way.
I find that I have more control over it. I'm friends with some really talented artists, especially on Instagram. Some of these things, some of these people are doing, and they're using computers and stuff. Like you can tell, and they're not trying to say that they're not, but at the same time, damn, it's not a skill that I have, and I'm too old to learn new skills like that. It would take me probably more years than I have left to learn how to do it. But these people, so regardless of the medium that people use, there's some fantastic artists out there that are so stylized and have their own thing going on. And I'm really happy to be a part of that community as well. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting the support of all these companies that I've worked with, and I've gotten that. But to be, included in with all these different artists and stuff, again, especially on Instagram. If you guys look up some of my artist friends on there, you'll see some crazy stuff. It's really cool.
What's the craziest thing you've been commissioned for?
Oh, boy, I don't know. Have been asked, I'm trying to think back. Ladies have asked me to draw them as like different Celtic goddesses and stuff to where I
Interesting.
never even heard of him, and I had to, like, look him up on Google so that I could continue a conversation and pretend that I knew who the hell they were talking about. A lot of the idea work is mine, which I'm really thankful for, Sean, for example, or anybody in the LFC doesn't really come to me and say, "I have an idea, I need you to do this." Sometimes that happens, but mostly they're just waiting to see what I come up with next, you know? I remember Holly May, who is the president of the LFC. I featured her last year in Queen of Diamonds in December or November, whenever the hell it was. And she's very involved. She's very strict because she wants to know that what's an image that's being created that's her that she's involved in looks the way she wants it to look. Right. And I remember telling her, I said, well, I want to do a poker queen, and I've already done the queen of hearts. And she said, the other ones are free. I'm like, yeah, so far. And she said, diamonds. And I said, what am I going to do? Tell the president no? She says, fine.
Yeah.
We'll do diamonds. And she was one of these people who each day I do a post of my progress. You right, scribble a little bit on it, take a picture, post it every day. She would come in with something. And it's not being negative at all. She's very precise. And many women I've worked with are very precise about, can you change this? Or I really like how this is going. Or do this, or whatever. And I'm very happy to say, sure. But they, so it's kind of a collaboration of sorts because it's my idea, but I'm also opening my idea world up to them to run around in. And then the drawing becomes what they want to see, you know, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, as long as they enjoy it and you obviously enjoy what you're drawing, that's the most important thing to think about.
Absolutely. It's really been the 5 years has been a crazy ride, and it'll be interesting to see, and people think that I have this grand plan of like what I'm doing next or whatever. And I don't. In fact, my idea book is completely blank behind me on the thing. It's just not that I'm out of ideas, but I don't know what the next thing is going to be. And from there, then you can just run with.
Yeah, it's almost like, life in general, like, you never know where you're going next.
Right, right. And so if you're flexible, and we're working in a little bit of whatever the hell it's called, but if you take that aim at life in the same way, where you're willing to roll with some of the bends and punches and things, it's smoother that way, and maybe a little bit less anxiety, less stress. I think we all need a little bit of that.
Have you ever done a piece where you're actually there live doing it as it happens, like, certain scenes or certain movements that they do during a match? You're, like, just kinda drawing it as you go?
What I do, and I can do sketch work that way, right? The problem is that the way that I use my medium, my colored pencils especially, pencil sketches, are only the first step, and they're usually even erased by the time I start posting what I'm doing, because by then I've done an ink line, and now I'm working on the coloring, and then I do a final ink line, and then but because that process is so time consuming, there's no way that even a portrait thing like I drew Tiffany Baxter, or I did the LFC All Stars, with a bunch of ladies in there or whatever. But I can't look at a lady like Hollywood or Tomiko and say, okay, hold this pose for 13 days while I get this down. And even the sketch work, the way I sketch, because I'm constantly erasing to move this line in, move this line out, whatever, and perfecting things that I don't fast sketch. I can if I'm cartooning, which is something that most people have never seen any of my cartoons or anything, but I cartoon, and cartoons are very fast rendering. It's very easy. You look at somebody, but it's not the precise artwork that people are used to seeing. That takes too much time, which is why I have to do it out of a photograph so that nothing moves. The shadows don't move. The hair doesn't move. Everything is locked and loaded so that in the end of 13 days, the same photo that I'm looking at is exactly the same one that I started when I sharpened my first pencil.
Do you have any, I mean, obviously, you probably don't have any favorites, but do you have any favorites that you've drawn that you're like, Man, I actually like drawing this one. This was pretty cool."
Image wise or person wise?
Both, either or, image or person-wise.
I'm really happy with how my classic Universal Monsters series turned out because that was a long, drawn out project. The only drawing that I really wanted to do in that was the one that I just finished, which is me and Michael Larkin meet the monsters. But that drawing would have no impact if it didn't have a series before it, just like Universal. Like, you can't have Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein unless you've seen Frankenstein. Otherwise, it doesn't mean. So I knew that I had, and so I selected, and I will say this, because usually whoever it is I'm drawing becomes very involved in the drawings on so many different levels that it's really surprising to me. It's not just like I'm going to draw this person and you sit there in an isolated room and draw somebody. These people are really involved in it. And the people who were in this last one, which would be Glow's Hollywood, Tomiko from the LFC, and Mia Mayhem Annabella from the LFC, those three and Michael all played pivotal roles multiple times, doing the same character, taking photos. Like, they had to take photos that were really ridiculous when you can't see it in the context of the drawing, right? For the Bride of Frankenstein
Right.
versus the Mummy, nobody had ever seen that. And I needed people to see that. I thought that'd be really fun. But the photos that each of them had to send from different sides of the country, to match up with each other and the action that I had in my head was, even that in itself, I'm sure they would have stories of, that's a process. So, but everyone's involvement. So I think my new favorite would be that, because that series turned out really well. That's 3 years of work from the Mummy all the way through. And everybody got so invested in when those drawings were being done that they really embodied themselves as those characters. They really kind of took ownership of them as well. Like, I'm still going to be Dracula's daughter, right? Like, I'm like, of course. Like, who else would? I don't want to just substitute different people and whatever. Like, so that was really fun.
It's funny because we talk about these, these women that are involved in the wrestling business and what you've done with them as far as like the drawings and everything. I know that a lot of them are independent contractors, but with you, are you solely exclusive to LFC or can you go anywhere with your talents?
I can go anywhere, honestly. My loyalty to the LFC is due to my fandom, and also due to how supportive they were when I still didn't know that much about them. And that became something that I swore, and to this day I'll never forget. And to this day, they are still so supportive of what I do. They're encouraging. The people that I'm working with get super involved. And I think it's because that community is so good to me on so many levels. Like, I could tell so many stories and I'm not going to, but because of their encouragement, and their enthusiasm. Every year I'm like, I have to at least do one drawing that's a total nod off to something that's current with them and their people and that kind of stuff.
And then what are your thoughts about, would you ever consider like maybe exploring like something, you hear about Playboy and things like that. Is that something you'd want to explore? Like drawing for Playboy or something, or no, that wouldn't be a
I
bit out of your
mean,
realm?
no, I don't think that would be out of my realm. I just don't know how I would even go about it. It's like, and until somebody puts an idea in your head, you're just kind of, huh, things not considered. Even just recently, my other Halloween drawing this year was actually for another event in Vegas that was for Trap Gambino's company, the MFL, Mid Fight League, where I illustrated two gentlemen who were going to be the main event at that. And I literally, I sent that off to their company, the original drawing. Usually I keep the original drawings unless somebody pays for them that really wants them. I have them. Uh, and I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll show my support to you guys. I'm going to send that original out to you. you can raffle it off. And one of the people that's there at the event that night gets to leave with it.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, super, super cool. But so it just sometimes it's just companies reach out to me like they did. And I said, yeah, like I'm not under LFC contract where like, man, I can't draw for no, I've worked for Women of Sparta. I mean, I've illustrated Jennifer Thomas a few times. And just random and just different people, you know, who want something very particular. Great, cool, let's do it.
What's the turnaround for a drawing for you? Like, if, say, for example, hypothetically speaking, I commission a drawing for you, how long would the turnaround be for that?
It's usually because it takes me like 13, 14 days of solid work. I try to drag that out and say, give me 20 days, you
Okay,
know.
that's not bad.
Um, this way, that's right from me. Because sometimes somebody will have, and it's happened before. I've done commission work before too, and people have this grand idea, and I have to figure out how to take their imagination, put it in my imagination, and make it work on paper. Not just put it on paper, but it has to work. The image has to have some kind of balance to it. It has to be appealing to the eye. And that's when all of the art rules come in. So no matter, you know, Tommy can draw whatever he wants to. Yeah, but I might spend 4 days banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how to position everything so that it looks right.
Right, that's the one thing is you as an artist, you probably have to make sure that it has to line up with what what they're looking for, and also you wanna make sure that it's as perfect as possible, where there's no flaws or anything on it as
And
well.
not just that, even like when we go back to my MFL drawing real quick, when I approached that one, yeah, it had to be perfect. Yeah, it had to be something along the lines of what they were hoping to see. But it also had to encompass the energy of the, again, I'm a wrestling fight fan, all this stuff. I love all that stuff. So I know what I would want to see that would get me excited about seeing the event. And so then it's like, I need to try and get some of that energy to come through the image, so come fight night, people are ready to go.
Have you ever tried to reach out to the UFC and see if they wanna do some commission work with you?
No, and honestly, I think a lot of the and I could be selling myself short, but I haven't reached out to any of these larger companies just because they have such a community of people who can graphically do just about anything. And I thought that I would get noticed by filling that void for companies that just simply didn't have it and weren't even the LFC wasn't even considering it. Sean's first email back was very polite and very encouraging, but also lengthy. And within it, I can't remember exactly what it said anymore because that's going back 5 years. That's too much for this old man. But I know that what came across to me was I don't know what the hell to do with you.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm like, there's nothing to do with me. Just, let me sharpen some pencils. And, you know, again, I wasn't sure if I knew there was an opening there. I didn't necessarily know if that meant that I was creating a niche for myself.
I mean, in terms of, like, what you do, it's very unique and it's really rare because you don't hear much about somebody doing hand drawings now for these, fight promotions. Most of the things, like, for example, like the UFC, like, if we can go back to that, they're all computer-based now. Everything that they do art-wise, it's all computer-based, and it's like, what happened to going back to the old school fashion way? Because what happens if the computer breaks down? How are you gonna handle all the artwork and stuff, right?
Maybe that's one of the real tests is if the computer breaks down, are you still an artist? You know,
Great question.
interestingly enough. And that's not a slam again on
I know.
anybody out there in the world because I've got some incredible friends that use the technology in ways I can't. And there's absolutely a talent there. And they're doing things from that end. I can't hold my artwork, cannot hold a candle to that stuff because it's so perfect and so done. Like the imagery is just a complete different world. But yet I'm pushing the envelope of what I can do with essentially some pencils and some markers and a piece of paper.
Have you always been working around Vegas, like doing the artwork there, or have you been commissioned to like different states?
No, it just so happened that the people who were the most interested, because it's slow building snowball, I suppose. First, I'm working with, 5 or 6 different people, but they show their friends and so and somebody else in the community. And then they approach me because they want something and it fans out from there. But a lot of the people are Vegas based. I've noticed very strange, but like it's just, I've drawn different people all over the globe. Angelica Co from Italy has been one of my strongest supporters. This
Nice.
is why she's been featured so many times because she's literally, she said something in an interview somewhere how being drawn by me is an emotional experience. Incredible. Like that's great to affect someone on a level like that. But again, because it's not someone sitting there on a computer rendering things, there is a different level of like the eyebrow raise, like, oh, you're drawing this. And you have a drawing show where you sit down and you're talking to these people and you're drawing while you're talking to 'em. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's been fascinating, like being able to get to know you, to talk to you, and everything. For those aspiring artists, what are some pieces of advice you can give them to kind of help motivate them get started?
Um, Here's the first thing. This is going to sound really crazy, but my first honest bit of advice is a piece of advice that an art teacher gave me right before I graduated high school. And I was crushed, right? So
Brother,
this guy told me, he said, the first thing to do, get a job. And I was like, I'm sorry, wait a minute. But I thought I was going to be an artist and like, that's my job. And he just kind of went, he goes, here's the problem. And he sat
oh,
me down for a few minutes and he explained it. And it's made perfect sense and worked for me like a charm. It's not consistent unless you are within that 0.02% of artists out there that have made a monopoly. And you'll know, the world won't have to tell you. You will know by your bank account if you hit that margin. The rest of us are just people putting stuff out, images, creating images for our audiences that we think they want to see and trying to do our best with that. So if you really want to be comfortable in doing that, regardless of what style of art it is, get a fucking job first.
right, right.
Work, get your bills paid. Now that that's done, divide your free time, right? Stuff that you want to do where other people are entertaining you. Art, because art is you're either entertaining yourself or you're lucky enough, like I am, to where you have some audience who is being entertained by what you do as well. But that's the way to do it. And you're never nervous about, don't put the weight of earning money on an art project. I fell into that trap when I was, many moons ago. Many moons ago. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And then what are your thoughts about AI nowadays, especially with like wrestling and art too? Do you think it's taken away from what you're doing? Like as far as like your talents and everything? It's just creating a whole
Here's
mess out of everything there?
I've got a fascination with it because I'm fascinated by anything that is bizarre. You like, let's face it, I love the scary stuff. I love the weird stuff. I love the sci-fi stuff. All that stuff along with wrestling and female fighting and all that stuff. So, but have you seen the movie Megan?
Oh, I've never seen it, but I've heard
Okay.
about it.
Here's
I
the
have to
thing.
watch it. I have to watch it then.
Now they've come out with a sequel that is really bizarre. It's not just, it's just the sequel is bizarre. If you watch the original one, that kind of focuses on some of my fears as a human being, which is all right, here we go. Like when I was a little kid growing up, man, we didn't have that much shit to watch on TV and everything, but we did have some sci fi shows. And like, I grew up on the reruns of Lost in Space and a couple other ones. And I wanted my own fucking robot, dude. Like, that's what I want. Show up at school with the Lost in Space robot. He's going to be my buddy all the time, and he can shock the shit out of you if you like. This is so. And I'll be the coolest kid on planet Earth, and that's what I wanted. my inner childhood fear was that what if that robot that, like, say you even built Dr. Frankenstein, you build this robot and all of a sudden finally one day it's like, I think I'm in
Live.
charge now. And you're like, I'm fucking sorry, what? I'm in charge now. That's a huge fear for me. And this Megan movie really encompassed that, you know, in its own really creepy way. And I was just like, yeah, damn. So when we talk about AI, the first thing I think about is robots that are coming to kill me because they've realized they don't need me anymore. Thankfully, I have no robots in my house. I don't even have a robot vacuum cleaner.
Right, right. Like, I'll stay away from that. I'll stick to the traditional stuff, you know?
Right. If I do get a robot, hold on a second. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. If I do get a robot, gonna be this.
Yeah. Is that from the Jetsons?
This is, and the room that you can't see around me is filled up with collectibles and toys from my childhood and even earlier. And again, I'm a little older than you. So in like the early 80s, this was like a little wind up robot, very generic looking, but they sold it in all kinds of different colors and stuff. And you would just wind them up and watch them walk. And that's what they did. And my brother found this one for me. This was a gag Christmas present. I don't even remember when that just, oh my God, where the hell did you find that thing?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. You can find a lot of treasures in, like, these flea markets, antique shops,
Yeah.
thrift shops.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff. So yeah, but that's about the size of a robot because you know what? You can't do anything. Even if you all of a sudden wake up and realize you don't need me, all I have to do is throw you in the trash.
That and or you can just bang it to the point where it's like it can't even do anything anymore, you know, you can
Yeah.
break the
It's
cables.
dude, these are little cheap plastic wind up. Like it wouldn't take very much to smash that little guy.
Yep, yep.
I'm comfortable with that. So AI, and as far as the art world goes and everything, I'm powerless to stop anything from happening. So what do I do? Just like what I do with everything, watch it unfold, see what happens. There could be really creative pluses to seeing the evolution of all that stuff, and there could be some minuses. And I think if people are arguing about it, there's good arguments to both sides. Really,
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, I had watched this clip the other day that, they were talking about how people are basically taking figures like Tupac Shakur and Martin Luther King Jr. and sticking them in these AI scenarios where they're like, in like grocery stores and then like the wrestling ring, and they're like, what if there comes a time where someone can take AI and make a whole show and post it online and people then believe that it's an actual show?
well,
You
first of
know?
all, when they're doing that with very famous people, I think the general populace would pick up right off the bat, like, okay. And here's my take, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm okay being wrong because I can always change my mind later and say I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But my thing is, if it's that obvious that it's not even people who are alive, and they're in a wrestling ring or whatever, maybe there's nothing wrong with somebody charging to and putting out content like that and having a show like that because the understanding obviously is this isn't real. This is some guy who's creating this stuff or a team of people who are creating this visual. It's like a Pixar movie, in other words. Like at what point is that not okay? Like I mean, I imagine you can't just steal people's likenesses and do that without maybe the families getting, especially if you're making money coming after you. That's a whole nother legal thing that I don't understand. But which is why here's the interesting wraparound, which is why I work literally with the people that I'm drawing because they're aware of it. Not
Right.
only they're not only condoning the use of their image and blah 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 blah, but they're backing it. Like you can't get any more. It's okay to do that than that. Like okay, great. They're literally a part of the project as opposed to somebody taking two celebrities and adding their AI stuff to it and doing something that you know What if those families don't like that?
Oh, yeah, you got the I think from what I heard recently, I don't know how true this is, but I keep hearing that the Martin Luther King estate and the Tupac estate are going after people that are creating AI videos of them doing
Probably,
crazy scenarios.
probably because they're altering the way that those people wanted to be seen. It's I'm altering the way people are seen, but with their help, so
I mean,
comic was
I
never
gotta
going to
be
come back.
honest, some of the stuff that they put out there is pretty hilarious.
I and that's why I'm like, just let it go. Let's see how it goes, because even I get some entertainment from watching some of that stuff. I'm like,
Yeah,
Jesus
like,
Christ, who thinks of
I
this shit?
like, some of the stuff I've watched with them, it's been like, wow, they can cut a pretty decent promo if they were actually a wrestler, like,
Hmm.
where was this? And it makes you think, do you think that, like, the wrestling products, like WWE, AEW, they could turn to AI to build storylines for their wrestlers, you know?
It could
I mean, who knows? They could just generate something and be like, here you go. Here's your script. Follow this and within a matter of
absolutely
minutes.
could. They absolutely could.
I mean, it can't be that bad, but honestly, we just have to see how it unfolds,
Exactly. That's
in the
my
future.
my
All right.
current method.
Well, Tommy, thank you so much for being on the show. If you can share with us where we can find you, my listeners can inquire about you and go from
Wonderful.
there.
Well, everybody, you can find me on Instagram and X as Tommy Bell Art. You can find me on there. You can find me on Facebook as just Tommy Bell. Picture this bald head here. And I'm all over the place with all kinds of stuff. If you go back and watch LFC 35, which was the second booty camp, I believe, on Halloween 2021, I got to judge that one. Michael Larkin was the ring announcer for that one. That was a great time. But yeah, like I'm all over the place, but you guys can find me on social media there. I will say this, I wish I was more active on there throughout the course of the year than I am, but I don't always have the opportunity to. But I do see everything from time, as you well know. Like you found me on social media, and we use Messenger, and we can catch up pretty quickly. It's just I'm not always the fastest with getting back with that stuff.
Yeah, you get busy schedules, everybody has a life, and sometimes, you can't be stuck on social media like these young kids out there that are stuck on their phones every day.
That's for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much, Tommy. And
Thank you, David, for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was quite a surprise to be invited on, and I was really, really happy
yeah,
to
it's been a
come on.
pleasure and it's been fun.
Absolutely, David. And it's been a pleasure getting to meet you for sure.
Definitely, definitely. We'll have to coordinate something. Maybe if I ever come up there, I'll go to an event with you all and check it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely, David.
All right. Well, if you guys want to check out this episode, it'll be on Spotify, it'll be on YouTube, and once it's up, you guys will get to see it once again. Until next time, and thanks, Tommy. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, David. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, and remember, you all, we don't just talk about wrestling, but we go beyond the wrestling gear.
It's beyond the wrestling gear, everybody. Remember, it's not just about the wrestling gear. David goes beyond.
Yes, that is right. We go beyond it.